Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining us for this occasion. I'm glad to be joined by so many members of the Arkansas General Assembly who obviously passed this key legislation. And I want to particularly acknowledge President of the Senate, President Pro Tem Jim Hendren, as well as the Speaker of the House who's joined me today, Senator Dismang and Representative Jett, Chairman of the respective Revenue and Tax Committees, carried this legislation, did an incredible job, and I'm pleased today to sign the legislation, but let me make a comment first that, as you know, this is the third part of a three-part play. The first part was when we did the middle income tax cut of $100 million. The second part of the play was the $50 million lower income tax cut, and so 90% of all Arkansans have already benefited from a tax cut. This today is the final part of this series, which is the lowering of the income tax rate in Arkansas for individuals to 5.9%. That'll happen over the next 2 years, and this has been a great partnership with the legislative task force that worked so hard on their recommendations. We joined together. We came to an agreement on how we can get this done, and it received incredible support in a bipartisan way from our General Assembly that allowed us to pass it with a 3/4 vote. And that's a heavy lift, and it shows the strength of the support for this in the General Assembly and among Arkansans. I also would note that I just left a technology summit. There was amazing entrepreneurs there. And whenever you can tell them, some of them from Washington State, Texas, some of them from different parts of the country, that we just lowered our income tax rate in Arkansas to 5.9%, they recognize how important that is to the competitive nature of Arkansas and how this adds to our favorable climate for businesses to locate here, as well as the right way to treat the citizens who live here. These are people that might have options down the road. They have options now, but if they sell their business, you can always relocate. We're a mobile society. This helps keep them there, capital, investment, and talent here in the state of Arkansas. And finally, whenever you lower it to 5.9%, you start getting recognition nationally for what we're doing in a new tax policy in Arkansas. And here the Wall Street Journal did an editorial talking about Arkansas tax cutters. And of course, this has caught the attention of a lot of business people across the country, recognizing the direction we're going, working to make our state more competitive. What a great national message that Arkansas wants to be competitive, and the law that we're going to sign helps us to get there. With that, I wanted to invite President Pro Tem, if he had any comments, is followed by the Speaker.
I don't really have a lot to add. I think we talked about it when we unveiled this, except to say I appreciate the cooperative effort of both Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate. It was really a collaborative effort, and I also want to thank, as the Governor said, the efforts of the task force over the last year and a half. That research and that in-depth study really equipped us well for the discussions that we had about how to make Arkansas more competitive with our tax code. And I will tell you that as we looked at all the different states, what you see here in Arkansas today, I think will be an example to other states about how over a 6-year period you can reduce taxes responsibly and do it in a way that does not put the budget at risk. So I think it's a great day, and again, I think it's something that speaks well for the way state government works in Arkansas.
I'd just like to echo those comments. I'd like to thank Representative Jett for his sponsorship in the House and the work that he did to guide it through the House. I'd also like to thank both Republicans and Democrats for the bipartisan support that we received in the House. And we knew going into it a few weeks ago when we laid out the path forward, we knew it was going to be a heavy lift. At that time, I said I was comfortable with it because I felt like it was measured and manageable. And I think that what we've seen here is the legislative process at work. So I'm very excited that we've reached the point where we're moving beyond just announcing something and we're actually able to sign a bill into law. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
I had a story, Senator Dismayne, you would appreciate this, that whenever the income tax was raised in Arkansas to 7%, somebody wanted to raise it to 9%, and that was blocked in the legislature. You think about where we were in the 70s and our tax policy in Arkansas that continued on until the present time into 2008, whenever we started, actually after that we actually started to lower the tax. But in the last 4 years, we've been able to lower the tax rate in Arkansas from 6.9 down to 5.9 over the next 2 years. This is a historic shift in Arkansas tax policy. And we just need to underscore the moment that what we are doing is historic in relation to what we've done in the past. It sets the right pattern for the future. With that, please join me as we sign this. Let's see if there's any questions back here. Are there any questions?
Now that you've got this signed into law, I guess what are there other cuts that you're looking at for taking up this session, and kind of how are you approaching that?
There's other recommendations that came out of the legislative task force. I'll let the legislative leaders address that in a moment. But the first priority that I have, or the next priority, is to get our highway bill passed. And I think everybody wants to make sure that passes next before we consider additional steps that might have been recommended. So that's the next priority, but I want to invite.
Well, as you recall, the task force on tax reform issued a report of about 40 pages, including several recommendations. Dropping the top income tax rate was certainly one of the highest, but there were several others. There are other pieces of legislation being crafted to implement some of those reforms. One of those pieces of legislation includes one of the task force recommendations, which was the internet sales tax. And so there is still more work to do. There were some corporate reforms that the task force recommended that I think are important to make Arkansas competitive at the corporate level as well as the individual level. And then there were some reforms about the way the tax code is administered, fairness issues between counties, standardization of some assessment criteria. So there are a lot of reforms left to do. You will see more tax bills coming. Some involve some further cuts on down the road, and some, of course, will involve the internet sales tax. Probably. I mean, we're trying to take one of these challenges at a time, and that one's going to obviously involve a lot of discussion and I'm sure negotiation as well. But I think we're going to try to get through highways and then move on to some other areas.
Well, the budget that was presented allowed room for tax cuts. The first adjustment is that we did not have the adoption of the federal tax cuts and normalization of our federal code with our state code, and so that impacted us some. And so I think it's a question as to when the tax cuts that we are committed to, as to when they come into play and how quickly we can do those. And so the commitment is to get the 5.9 passed, but we want to get it accomplished, and we want to manage the budget in accordance with that. And these other tax cuts are important to do, but we certainly don't want to, we've got to see the whole budget picture as to how quickly they can be phased in.
So you haven't, just want to be clear, you haven't made any commitments for particular corporate income tax cuts?
No, I'm committed to looking at additional, as the senator said, looking at the internet sales tax as a part of it, and then combined with that some additional corporate tax restructuring that will allow us to be more competitive. These are the priorities recommended by the task force. I share those priorities. So the question is exactly what triggers those, and that's what there will be discussions on as they draft the bill and be presented. But again, I hope that we can get through our highway bill, because I think everybody wants to see that done next, and then let's see where we are and how fast we can look at these others.
Care to weigh in on the debate on vaping taxes and e-cigarettes?
I'll just say that
You're encouraging or discouraging?
I applaud the legislative leadership and others for, and the GOP ladies as well, for working so hard for the UAMS Cancer Institute designation, the national recognition. That takes a funding stream, and I know that Senator Hendren and Representative Shepherd, or Speaker Shepherd, is looking for those, and we'll see what that funding source will be. But the one that you mentioned, yes, the vape tax, I'm absolutely open to that, because that's a problem for our youth. It's something that should be addressed in a regulatory fashion, and so I do support that. Mr. Speaker, do you have anything to add here? All right, thank you all very much.